I can't automate something that's not there. In fact, if you look it up right now, there's about a 90 to 95% failure rate in companies that are incorporating AI solutions within their business. And so my question to you is are you implementing artificial intelligence in your business?
The most real and relevant resource on AI and automation. AI Automation Alchemist Podcast, sponsored by Grata Software.
All right, what is the 70-20-10 rule with AI? And why aren't many consultants talking about this specific rule? Now, originally, I didn't even know what the rule was. Originally, it was created in 1996. It was actually part of a whole different process of innovation management that was done by an old company back in the days. Google picked it up in the 2000s, and then MIT, when AI started coming around, started implementing this 70-20-10 rule. And I'm going to go over it in a little bit. It was a framework for managing innovation within companies so that they can be able to allocate the time correctly between all of their people. So, for instance, you would spend 70% of your time on core application stuff or core work, not just applications. It wasn't just a technical thing. It was, again, management of innovation within companies, large corporations. So you had 70% working on core, 20% were related items, and then 10% was in new innovative things. And that was kind of how that framework was set up. And that was just the way for these companies to be able to split their efforts between all the things that they were doing. And so let me tell you a story about this, because this rule, even though I didn't know what the rule was, I've seen the detriment of this rule, especially when it's applied to artificial intelligence. And that's the reason for this whole conversation. Inside of artificial intelligence, the problem that we have is that, especially today, a lot of the consultants that are out there, they're talking about using a lot of the tooling, agents, and all those kind of things in order to develop artificial intelligence solutions. However, they're not implementing the 70-20-10 rule, which happens to be a rule that's been around for a while. And let me explain. I was at an AI Summit conference, and I was watching the video on the AI consultant who was at the time going through their whole process. I've talked about the same thing in my last podcast, but I'm going a little bit further on this one, because what happened is that this person was going over the tools to use in order for you to become an AI consultant. You, the viewer, one watching and one learning. You can get a certification in AI, all these kind of things. And they were showing all the steps in how to use the tools and all that stuff. And the problem with that is when you're watching that, you're going, there is no why, there is no purpose behind using those tools. And that tends to be what happens with a lot of these AI consultants try to teach how to use these tools for you to use for your own business, or for you to go sell or become an AI consultant yourself and also be certified. And so the problem is I had a client, and that client had hired me in order to do automation and AI. And when I was working with this client, they were like, they came up to me. I did a whole presentation on artificial intelligence. I do this all the time. I do these presentations where I go around and I talk about how do you use AI and automation or in order to acquire new customers, how do you find a target audience, how do you acquire that audience, how to sell to that audience, all of that kind of stuff. And so I go through this whole presentation, and I finish the presentation. She comes up to me, she says, "Ray, I want to hire you because I want automation. I want automation across my business." And I'm like, that's interesting. Okay, great. I mean, it sounds like you already know what you want. Let's sit down. Let's talk about it. So we sat down and we talked about her business, and her business was a coaching program, and she had already established herself as a coach. However, I didn't know much about what was going on behind the scenes in her business. But as I was talking to her, it seemed like she had a fully functioning business with standard operating procedures and processes and all those kind of things. So I said, yeah, let's go ahead. Let's do this, close the deal, sign a contract. We started working. And then I remember on day one, when we had our onboarding session, I brought her into my office, sat in the conference room, and she says, "Okay, what do we do?" And I said, "Okay, great. Where's your list?" She says, "I don't have a list." I'm like, "Okay, well, so you don't have a list. Okay, where are your funnels?" I have someone working on my funnel. They built a landing page. Okay, so you have a landing page. Okay, so what do you have currently as far as processes? That's why I hired you. And I'm going, wait a minute, hold on. You hired me to automate your whole system and leverage AI in order to help you automate your whole system. I can't automate something that's not there. You have to have something there to automate. You have to some sort of process, some sort of procedures, something that you already do, an SOP, something that you already do that actually I can use and I can automate. She didn't have any of that stuff. And the problem is that when you're looking at this kind of a scenario, you're like, okay, well, You need process procedures, you need standard operating procedures, but what you also need is you need to lead by experience. You need a lot of the things that we automate and we use AI for, especially in the world. My company, company, Grata Software, we produce custom solutions for companies, but in those companies, they already have some type of process procedure, something that we can lead by experience. We can take that experience that they have, the process that they follow, and then we can build things into them and we can automate some of those processes. Without any of that stuff, you can't really do that kind of work. And so in this podcast, I want to talk about the secrets to the 70-20-10 rule. Okay. And I kind of alluded to it already, but I'm going to tell it to you in the sense of how to use it for artificial intelligence, because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about artificial intelligence. All right. And we're talking about automation, but artificial intelligence. That's why it's called the AI Alchemist or AI Automation Alchemist podcast. I don't even know the name of my own podcast. So, secret number one. So, 70% of the work to implement AI is to get people and the culture in line for the purpose of what you're using AI for. So, let me explain to you how that works. So, I'm working at a company right now, and not working, but I'm working within one of the companies as a consultant. And when I go into that company, the first thing they did when we started the project, we started this whole AI automation project for them. The first thing they did is they brought the whole team together and they said, listen, we're going to enhance and advance what we do as a company. And so we need buy in from everyone. And everyone said, okay, yeah, if this is going to make our lives better, we're all in. And they ended up making all of these shirts. They called it Project Army, ARME. I can't tell you what it is because I'll have to divulge the name of the company, but just think about that. So Project Army, and it was a t-shirt that they made where everybody wore, and we kicked off the project and everybody was in. We had a full buy-in from everybody. And so that is how you get full culture and buy-in. So 70% of the work in implementing artificial intelligence, automation, everything is you have to get buy-in from everybody. You have to get people to understand, okay, they need to add some new skills. They need to build some new AI skills. The leadership team needs to add their own skills in leadership and running a team of people that are going to be now leveraging this new technology. And so it needs to be completely bought in by everybody on the team. All right. So you got that. So now we have leadership. So now this is where the 20% comes in. So 20% should be focused of your business should be focused on the integration and the processes in order to make all of this stuff work. This is where you actually build out the standards, the operating procedures, and then also you use that in order to inform the AI automation or the AI implementation, because that's what we're focused on here. We're focused on the implementation. For example, in that same scenario, the company had already had a certain set of standard operating procedures. So what we did is we took those exact documents and then we created a framework of how we can go through those processes, how we can automate those processes, and also how to implement any type of automation steps in order to make those processes simpler for the rest of the team. All right. That is 20% of the work that is required in order to implement artificial intelligence and automation into your business. And so there you go. You got the 20%. So now where's the 10%? And this is the funny thing. When I tell you where the 10% is, you're going to be like, this is crazy. But before I go into that, I first want to say thank you to our sponsor, Grata Software. Obviously, I've already talked about Grata Software. If you are looking for a company where AI is the thing that you need to implement into your business, but you need to do a very customized AI solution. If you're a company that you're operating and you have all your processes and procedures and you need help in putting that together into a full AI solution, then Grata Software is where you want to go. And so Grata Software, they're a full team of engineers. They do customized work, customized software development in the form of AI and automation. They've been doing it for over 25 years. Grata Software is where you want to go. And Grata Software, by the way, their tagline is they were AI before AI was cool. Now, another sponsor of ours, Digital Strike. Digital Strike is the way you can learn and train on how to use artificial intelligence and also how to do automations within your business. They have a full suite of training that you go to a school community and you can go learn how to implement those things, those technologies into your business so you can grow and you can scale. So check that out. It's called Digital Strike Hub on School Community. All of the links to these two companies are going to be in my show notes, as well as any other information in this show is going to be in the show notes. All right. So let's get back to, let's say, secret number three. Secret number three, what we said was 10%. 10% of the work that you're going to do in implementing artificial intelligence or automation is going to be in the algorithms themselves and the technology behind it. It sounds kind of interesting, right? Because if what I told you earlier is you have a lot of influencers out there that are talking about how to create artificial intelligence solutions for your business. You have a lot of people that are out there that are AI consultants who are using all the tools and ChatGPT and everything in order to create artificial intelligence and automation for businesses. However, they always talk about the tools first. They always talk about the tools, and they always talk about the code and the models and all that kind of stuff, and that infrastructure. And the reality is that is the last 10%. That is just 10% of the overall way that you can implement these solutions. In fact, if you look it up right now, there's about a 90 to 95% failure rate in companies that are incorporating AI solutions within their business. The reason why that's happening is because they're focused on that 10%. You still got to get the buy-in from the 70%. You still got to get some things in place for your 20%. But then at the end of the day, the technology and the implementation is really only that 10%. And I could tell you there are many companies that are doing that. In fact, as I was explaining, when I was in this AI summit, they were talking about how to use the tools and how to build the automations, how to build all that kind of stuff. 3 days later, we're doing a follow-up workshop, and I can already see people complaining about this is not working for me. This doesn't work for my company. The buy-in's not there because they went to the 10% first rather than trying to get buy-in from everybody in the 70%. Now, if you're a small business, you're operating by yourself, this is all on you. You're the one that has to have that ability to get your own buy-in, implement standard operating procedures that you've put together, and then obviously incorporate and implement those things in order to build your AI solutions. But if you're working in a team of people, you need to start at the top, and the top 70% is getting everybody involved. And that's really the only way that that could happen. All right. So just to recap what I just said. Okay. So 70%, everybody's got to be in it. Everybody's got to be in it. All right. We got that. So then 20%, that's where you have those same people that got buy-in. They got to put together the standard operating procedures, the flows, the workflows for your business. It's got to be down on paper. They got to put everything down. And then now you can take that information and now you can use the technologies and build in the implementations in order to build your automation, to build all of your AI. And it doesn't have to be customized AI, but if you're using tools to build your AI, it's got to start somewhere. And it's got to start with your standard operating procedures and how you implement things in your business. All right. So again, what are most AI consultants that are doing at this point? They're always teaching you how to do the 10%, the technology. And again, that's the reason why we have such high failure rates right now in the implementation of artificial intelligence. So you do need help with that. And so my question to you is are you implementing artificial intelligence in your business? Are you adding automations in order to make your business workflow much faster, more efficient so that you can get more customers? And also so that you, as the business owner, if you're watching this and you're a business owner, you want time for yourself to be able to work on your business, not work in your business. And so if that's something that you're looking at doing, I need you to comment, need a plan. Comment, need a plan below, and we'll send you our guide on adding AI and automation solutions in your business. It's a guide that we've put together we've built over 250 solutions over the span of over 70 companies. And all of those solutions were to automate, to streamline the workflow of the business, and at the end of the day, incorporate artificial intelligence solutions, both tools and customized, so that we can help businesses grow and scale and become more efficient. All right, that's it for this podcast, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Again, like, follow, subscribe, and I will check you guys out in the next episode.